church just as active as you see today here. The South Stukely Church has been running for 142 years. Every Sabbath, there's been a regular service here, except for special days, you know, where we have camp meeting like I told you about, where we'll group the, usually there's 2 churches left, 2 English churches left, but now we have a 3rd French church in Sherbrooke and another French church in Granby. Am I missing any? No, I think that's it. We'll group together as believers. But other than that, the South Stukely Church has been an active church for 142 years. We have had some struggles. We've had some difficulties. If you would come here 100 years ago, you would probably, there was no downstairs. And if our ladies wanted to go to use the washroom, it would be in the back, in a back house. Okay? You know what a back house is? In the summertime it was feasible, in the wintertime it was a challenge. In my younger years, I did use that back house. It was not really a place you wanted to visit often. As the church was growing, you know, the members increased, the members decreased. These English churches that was started by A.C. Bordeaux, because the Stukely Church here was started by 2 brothers, Daniel Bordeaux and A.C. Bordeaux. They came from Bordeauxville, Vermont, where Mrs. White had some visions, and they came up here to work in the area, knowing that they were able to speak French and English. It helped them to do the work here more conveniently. They had, when they came here, they started to have some tent meetings, have some believers, and after 3 months of meetings, they formed the first church in 1877. Now it took several years before they finally built what you see over here as a parsonage. Okay, that was where A.C. Bordeaux lived for several years. And then this spot of land here was donated as the church.
So this church property is from?
No, unfortunately, it was sold off. In the 70s, our church went through a period of selling off everything. Anything that they weren't using, they sold off. And unfortunately, sold off the parsonage. We haven't tried to acquire the parsonage back, but it's been a struggle. Maybe the Lord will help us in one day acquire back the parsonage. We'd like to unite the 2 back together as the total piece to best amplify the work that was started here by A.C. Bordeaux. Now, as time progressed, you can see that we always had a struggle here with our church of its functionality. Because when you came here, not only weren't toilets for people, there was no feasible Sabbath school. Everything had to be done in the sanctuary, which was a struggle for people with handicap, people with families. When you're trying to have a mother, 3 children, and a dad in one bench, and they're all under 5 years old, when you try to take care of children, it was, well, we went through it. It's not every family that wants to do that. They would rather move to a church that has all the luxuries of bathrooms and upstairs and downstairs. So we constantly were going up in membership and we lose membership. And as society advanced, we too here in South Stukely realized that if we weren't able to service the needs of the people that were coming here, we were going to die. And we've been going on the church had been founded on this building, and there was one member that said, we're going to die here, and we've been it was our duty to be caretakers of the oldest church in Canada, but it was only a building with no life in it. One pastor called us a dead church. So we took that as an English defeat, a challenge. We took it as a challenge, and it wasn't easy, okay? And as we were struggling, we knew we had to offer services to them. We needed washrooms, we needed new facilities. So by the grace of God, not to do our members, and just miracles happened. I can tell you miracles that happened that allowed us to raise the church, and we caught the concept that if we do the work, God will bless us with the people. So we started the work, and we didn't know where the end was leading us.
You gotta tell them how many members was.
Okay, thank you, dear. typical Sabbath during those years, we were 8 members. It was a lonely building to come to. Then one member had to be put away in a home and we were at 7. It was a struggle. And we were wondering, was it the building that was keeping us together? Or was it our faith that was keeping us together? So we took on another challenge. We said, what we're going to do is, it was wintertime, it was cold in here, 6 years ago. We said, we here at Stukely, for the winter, we're just going to we're going to move to a basement building to have our worship service there just for about 2 months, 3 months max. And we're going to see if it's the building that keeps us together or if it's our faith that keeps us together. After 2 weeks, my phone didn't stop ringing and they were crying. They wanted to come back to their baby church. It was an argument, but yet we said it was a challenge that we'd given ourselves 3 months and we were going to see it through. At the end of 3 months, we laid the plans to start raising the church, and we were just going to make it a crawl space. We were just going to make it a crawl space because the 4 founders of the building had always told us that there was a huge rock under the church, that it was built on ledge and it couldn't be moved. So we said, well, we'll at least raise it and try to solidify the foundation. We hired the contractor, they brought in all the big machinery, they lifted the church 8 feet up in the air. And as it was sitting high up in the air, the pastor called me one day and he says, there's a big shovel that's working under the church and he's moved any stone that was in your way. God had cleared out a path for us to have a full basement underneath with all the services. Amen. It was an amazing miracle because we always had this challenge and we never could have it. So on faith, we moved forward and we struggled with finances. The members I remember one night out right in the front, we struggled for 2 hours arguing back and forth, strongly discussing. Not arguing, Adventists don't argue. We strongly discussed how we were going to move forward. And finally we said, look, God has given us this, we're going to accept what He's given us, and we're going to move forward. And as we moved forward, we put the church up, we put the church down, we arranged for the basement to be finished, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, one family's come into the church, and they liked the church and the services it offered, and the children really loved it. The children just were amazed with the place, and they loved the historical part of it, and they accepted to move here. A month later, another family. A month later, another family. Until finally, I'm telling you, on Sabbath, there's no place to sit. Every Sabbath is the same. This week was the first Sabbath that we came here, and some visitors came for the first time to our church. They're members from Montreal. And I was so thankful we had a bench because of vacation. People are gone away for vacation, and we were able to give them a full bench to their whole family. I was praise the Lord for that. I love people to come visit our church, but it's a challenge now to find places for them to sit. Now, where was this leading us? We're a church, we've decided that we're a church in action. We're not stopping. We have plans. There's, in the back of us here, there'll be the pastor's office and another classroom for teens. There'll also be another place underneath for cold storage because we don't have that. And there's even plans for an extension out the side. Not changing the structure of the oldest church in Canada, but adding on to it, allowing for us to grow, to maintain a future until Jesus comes. Amen. Now, some of you, I know that you guys come from Ontario, so you're a little bit west. And me and Pastor Manfield Edwards, sometimes when we get together, we often discuss on some of the different applications, the way church growth should happen. From a historical point of view and from even looking forward into the municipalities and into the rural areas where our church is growing. Because not only do we have a challenge in our cities, but how do we grow in the rural areas? Okay? Well, Pastor Edwards and I, we agree on one thing, is that when you move into a rural area, you have to get to know your municipality. You have to get to know the people outside of your four walls, because if we have Adventists hide in our buildings, who knows us? We'll just come here and we'll exist for 100 years, and you won't have grown outside of your four walls. So we here in South Stukely have decided that we're going to grow outside of our four walls. We've worked with the municipality, and that when we have a seminar, one of the first places we go is we go see the municipality and we say, listen, we're having a seminar on cooking, we're having a seminar on stress, we're having whatever it is, activity we're doing, we involve them. And they are reciprocating by coming, they fill our place full all the time. They want this type of service. So is there a way for our church to grow in rural areas? Yes. But we can't grow by hiding in these buildings, just thinking that if we come here on Sabbath and go to our homes, that we're going to grow in these communities. We have to come here, we have to involve ourselves in the community, and make friends with them. There's a person that did that a long time ago. I think his name was Jesus. Amen. And as he came there, he involved himself in the community, and he saw to their needs, and when he saw to their needs, people came. And people flocked in, and that's how our church is going to grow. That's how the oldest church in Canada keeps going every year now. And that's how I suggest you go to back to your churches. And that's how they're going to grow. Is keep working in your municipalities, work in your community, see to their needs, and by that they'll just want to flock to you. They want to come into your churches. I suggest to you, one, if you want to learn a little bit more about early Adventism, there's a man out of Andrews University who is now the dean. His name is Denny Fortin. Do you know Denny Fortin?
He used to be the head of the seminary.
Head of the seminary, that's right. Denny Fortin used to be a pastor here. Okay? And he wrote a book, Adventism in Quebec. You can write to Denny Fortin. I don't have copies all for you, I'm sorry. But if you want, you can take a picture of it or take the name and write to him. And I talked to him recently. He says he still has some copies. And you can read on the early Adventist history that happened here in Quebec and in the surrounding areas. How Mrs. White and James White, what they would do. Do I have another 5 minutes? Okay, 5 minutes. I don't know how good. Do you like a little bit of a early Advent history? Yeah. Not far from here, just down the road about, I would say, 20 kilometers, there's a little white church where William Miller started preaching. Anybody know William Miller? Yes. Yeah. William Miller used to spend his summers in a little town not far from here, on the other side of Lake Memphremagog named Georgeville. And he would come up the road a ways, and he would come into a city called Magog. Now, you see it? Okay, on the way. I know, you Bible scholars know, it's still called Magog, okay? But he used to come up to Magog, and he actually started preaching his world-end message in those areas. And it was from there that the people started to hear some of the Advent sort of stories, how righteousness by faith, and how that there was something other than the other Protestant churches were offering. Given this, William Miller sort of, his work around here sort of stirred. There was a movement, and then after it faded out, it gave opportunity for the work from Bordeauxville to come up from A.C. Bordeaux and his brother Daniel. Otherwise, there would have been no preliminary work done in the area. When Bordeaux's come here, they started work not only here in South Stukely, they started work in Dixville, in Sutton, and these were all English sort of little colonies from the British, what we call the first British settlers. Now the French in the area were resistant because in this area was a strong Catholic stronghold. The strength of the Catholic Church was so strong that if you were identified as a Christian believer, you could be sort of ostracized, pushed out. But these English hamlets, these English little colonies, gave way for the early workers to come and do their work. Like in Dixville, like in Hatley, Like in Farnham, there was little spots where the word started. Now, as the English started to sort of disperse away, there had to be work done in French. There was some French workers, but the word suffered miserably. And the Catholic Church was so strong that it just was in every, if you visit Quebec and you want to understand a little bit of Quebec history, as you drive through the towns, you look in each town, and in each town, the biggest building will be a Catholic church. Have you noticed that? Okay, now, this is my wife, Ginan, who was a former Catholic. Okay? And she lived that life, and she understands a lot of the challenges and a lot of what the symbols in that, and how that it can be a struggle to get out of that, and how the pressures of the Catholic Church puts on you put on the people during that time. They were so strong, and I'll bear testimony to this, that in the end of 1950, okay, the Catholic Church was given the power by the government of Quebec, all right, that if a Christian and a Catholic were to make a child together, the church had the right to go in and take that child from the family, remove him and send him to an unknown area to indoctrinate him into the Catholic faith. I have testimony of this because as you go home, one man told me he was from Windsor. Windsor. Well, not far from Windsor is Hamilton, okay? And up until about 95, 22 years ago, I had a brother that was living in Hamilton that I never knew about. Because my mom and dad was part of that. My dad was Adventist and my mom was Catholic, and the church took one of their children away from them. So I'm a testimony. I know all about that how that can just destroy, well, not destroy, disrupt the family life. Now today, as you're driving through these towns, you'll notice that the Catholic churches are a little bit in disarray. They're not as pristine as they used to be. Because Catholicism in Quebec is deteriorating from the inside. Now, I'm telling you this for a reason. Because now as Christians, as Adventists who know how close we are to the end time, it's time for us to stand up and preach to these people. Because there's still a lot of believers out there. They're no longer Catholic. And if we don't fill their ears with the message of Jesus Christ, somebody's going to fill their ears with another message. So do we have a work to do? Yes. Absolutely. Do Stukely has a work? Yes. Does Ontario have a work? Yes. You're our neighbors. You have continually Catholicism in Ontario is falling apart. Not as bad as here in Quebec, but still it's falling apart. Let us speak up now. Otherwise, there'll be some souls that will be lost. And Jesus don't want to lose anybody. Okay? If there's any questions, okay, I'm free for the next 5 minutes. My wife has me on a schedule a little bit. You're still in Quebec. You're still in Quebec. Yes, young man.
Who was the founder of Adventism?
Who is the founder of Adventism? I would call it Ellen and James White, along with probably, I'm trying to think of the names, forgot me, but that would be the founder. Not here. Here would be A.C. Bordeaux. A.C. Bordeaux. He would be the one that constructed the church. It's constructed, actually it's a good question, because this church is not built like a regular building. The church is built like a barn. And you'd say, why would it be built like a barn? Because who do you think it was built by? Farmers! And farmers build buildings like barns. So if you look inside the walls when we were trying to renovate, oh yes, okay, oh that's right. If you go downstairs, I'm so glad you guys are here today. Because as Canada's only heritage site, all right, we tried to preserve some aspects of the church that visitors could come and see. One of the things that you're going to see is if you go downstairs and you look at the ceiling, you're going to see the original boards that are there from the building. There's one lady was asking, one son was asking me, are those original windows? Are those, you know, things change. They're old windows, I know. Since I've been here, I've never seen them change. But I can guarantee you, when you look up from downstairs, that's original floorboard. You'll see how they built things. You'll see that one beam is round and one beam is square. There wasn't a lot of sawmills, so they flattened what they could and built it as strong as possible. Now, my challenge to you is that the city has given us a mandate that we have to restructure that somehow, because they call it a fire hazard. But we're looking into different options on how we can preserve that image so that when people come and they want to see how is the church built, I can bring them downstairs and show them that. So if you speak to your counselors, if there's something way you think you can help us, we're looking forward to that. Yes, sir.
When the church was built, did any of the founders of the Adventist church, like Ellen White and James White during 1877, visited here?
Never visited here. Some people allude to that fact. They never came here. The closest they came to the camp meeting in Mako. But Sister White had a problem traveling. She never liked to travel by water. She only traveled by land. And getting to here was a challenge enough for her. Actually, when they came to the camp meeting, if you buy the book and you read, you'll notice that when they got to the camp meeting, they got there late. You say, why did they get there late? She didn't like trains really, and she didn't like water. So how did she travel? Horse and buggy, which took more time. So getting here was one of the obstacles. Anything else?
They're all downstairs.
They're all downstairs looking at us, I know.